time to discuss the Bears draft simulation in its version 12.0, as we're less than 3 weeks away from the 2025 NFL Draft, depending on when you're watching this video. Let's get straight to the point. One aspect that hasn't been explored in these simulations yet is the possibility of making a trade to move up in the draft order. The trade would be with the Jaguars to secure the 5th pick, where they would receive the 10th and 41st selections. This could be done to ensure one of the 2 players I consider. The reason to move up to the 5th spot is the presence of the Raiders at the 6th pick, as rumors suggest they might select this player. When running these simulations, it's a mix of what I would consider doing, but it more reflects the perspective of what I believe the Bears might be considering, and I see this as a possibility that should be weighed. Looking at the draft order, it's clear that the Raiders represent a significant challenge to overcome. Now, is there a chance that another team could look to trade up to the 7th or 8th position and make this pick? Could the Saints decide to take him at the 9th spot? And if the Patriots decide they want to give a new quarterback the best offensive option available, could they pick him at the 4th selection if the Giants go for another player beforehand? However, the likelihood of him being picked by the Raiders at the 6th spot seems real, and the rumors appear to have some basis. I don't believe it's an absolute certainty. It's not a guaranteed deal by any means, but if he's selected by Las Vegas on draft night, I wouldn't be surprised. I see this possibility as very plausible. The team wants to focus on the ground game and doesn't have a quality starting running back. This player would fit perfectly into the Raiders' needs. So if the Bears really value him and want to secure him, trading up might be the solution. I would consider this transaction if the cost was just one of the second-round picks. I think he fits well for the team interested. So if the Bears truly want to ensure his presence in the draft, a trade-up might be the way to go. I would evaluate this option if it only cost one of their second-round picks. I'm not willing to give up a future first-round pick for this, nor would I trade a second-day selection or a second-round pick combined with another. However, in certain aspects, this could create the perfect balance to finalize a previous trade. I could use a second-round pick since I have an additional one acquired earlier and secure what I hope will be a standout running back. Reviewing the trade, would you be willing to move up to secure this player by giving up only one of your second-round picks? Your opinion can be expressed with a simple yes or no. Here's how fans see it. If it's a negotiated move up, I would prefer to drop from the other second-round pick I still have. So, I would pursue this option. A team shows interest, receives a pick, and I get additional selections, allowing me to acquire an extra one. This way, instead of having 2 second-round picks, I would still have 2 third-round picks at the end. So, now I have 4 picks within the first 86, instead of 4 within the first 72. From this perspective, it becomes more acceptable even if I have to give up a high pick. At least, I gain an additional pick. Regarding a player I usually select in the second round, I would be even more satisfied if he were picked at the 50 spot. I don't see him as a developing tackle, but he definitely needs improvement, if that makes sense. He's not a late pick. He was a starter for 3 years in a prestigious conference, indicating he's a high-level athlete. However, I believe there's a need to refine his technical aspect. Ideally, his agility could be slightly better, but he showed athleticism beyond what I expected, which is encouraging. As I mentioned, he started for 3 years in a program that has historically produced elite players at that position. I believe there are technical aspects that need improvement, and it would be interesting if his foot agility showed improvement. However, his athletic performance exceeded what I expected, which is very positive. He's been a starter for 3 years at left tackle in a program that has developed strong players at that position over time, and that's a favorable point. If you analyze recent comments from team members and the media, it's evident that they have an optimistic assessment of him. One team member indicated that he might have limitations when returning to practice. Despite this, there's still a positive expectation for another player, though the process is ongoing. The team continues to look for ways to add competition to the left tackle position if the right opportunity arises. This situation is a clear example, as selecting a player in a high position can be interpreted as competition, but choosing a player for that role, especially as a left tackle, should ideally result in a starter, whether in the first week of the season, later in the year, or at least by the following year. If that doesn't happen, concerns will arise because choosing a player in a high position who doesn't become a starter by his second year is problematic. There are other candidates who can come in and compete. If one of them wins the spot, that's excellent, and if they end up becoming a versatile player and later assume a starting role, that's also acceptable. So, by the middle to the end of the second round, if you can secure a promising left tackle, you'll have 3 players at the position, and may the best one win. Moving to the third round, at pick 72, this player is becoming one of my favorites, and I might dedicate a video to a host who highlighted some talents in this draft. One player in particular might join this list because he's quite interesting. His story is captivating. He's a local talent from the Chicago area, was underrated in recruitment, spent 4 years at one university, and as a fifth-year veteran due to the pandemic, transferred to another school where he played a significant role on a defense that made the college football playoffs. His performance was well regarded, although he probably fits better in a specific position at the professional level, with a pressure play efficiency rate that exceeds 10%. I believe he demonstrates some versatility, being useful both as a line player and as someone who pressures the quarterback. He stands out in run defense, and soon will highlight a statistic that really underscores this. The test he took impressed me because I didn't expect such a positive performance. The only area where he didn't perform exceptionally was height, but I see that as an advantage since he uses that feature to create leverage, similar to a specific type of player who has had success in the league. He may have a bit more agility compared to that other athlete. It's important to mention that this player will be a free agent next season, so if the team decides not to keep him, the other might take on a more prominent role in the team the following year. Currently, I think he could be part of a rotation from his first year. The third round seems to be the most appropriate moment for him. He doesn't have the characteristics to be a first or even second-round pick, but in the third round, he adds significant value to the team. One statistic that really stands out was pointed out by an analyst. The average depth of tackles on the team in run plays was just 2.11 yards. That means, on running plays, they were making tackles an average of 2.1 yards behind the line of scrimmage, which is quite impressive. The team closest to them had an average of 2.75 yards, which is more than half a yard further, which becomes significant when we look at the season average. The team faced a limited number of runs because opponents realized they couldn't run up the middle, so they didn't try. Still, this proves effective because it forces opponents to explore other tactics. Reflecting on the season average is highly relevant. Indiana participated in just 85 central runs because teams realized that approach didn't work, which placed them at 104th in the national ranking. This made teams decide not to experiment with that strategy against them, but still, this methodology remains valid, right? This situation forces teams to explore other tactics. Of those 85 runs, 29 resulted in tackles for loss or no gain, a stat that stands out even with how frequently this occurred. The performance of one player, in particular, shows that he was able to force opponents to change their attacking strategy. When a player can make the opponent alter their approach, it becomes a crucial factor. Now, the question is whether he can maintain that performance consistently in the professional league, especially as a rookie. However, this player can integrate and contribute immediately in the rotation. This statistic is impressive, especially for an Indiana team that, let's face it, focused on offense this year. For those who watched the games, he stood out as the best defensive player. This statistic is intriguing, forming a fascinating narrative, with him being underrated while striving to stand out. The expectations are for him to be selected in the third round. Other picks are on the way, but before that, we need to discuss a platform that can improve your fantasy experience. Daily fantasy has become more accessible, allowing athletes from different sports to be chosen for your daily lineups. You can build a baseball team or mix baseball players with basketball or hockey players. This is the essence of fantasy, the ability to combine various sports in your formations. 2 or more athletes from different teams, regardless of the sport, count toward your lineup, and the choice is based on available statistical projections, such as points, rebounds, assists, home runs, hits, eliminations, and many other data, depending on the sport. Additionally, there is also fantasy scoring. It's worth exploring this platform and taking advantage of its options. Moreover, there are possibilities for the football season, like a player who is expected to surpass their previous year's passing yardage on a team that underperformed. This is a bet I find appealing. Another athlete might run for over 70 yards. I made a $10 bet expecting a return of 30. There's also a bit of football action during the season. One athlete is projected to gain more passing yards, although the goal is actually lower than what they achieved the previous year on a team that faced difficulties, but I see value in that bet. Another player, on the other hand, I believe will surpass the 1,000-yard rushing mark. The bet is $10 for a return of 30, but for those who want to invest larger amounts, there are options that could offer returns of up to 1,000 times the wager with certain lineups. For new users, there's a promotion that offers an initial amount when signing up to play. Now, shifting focus, I'm looking to include new players in the discussions, avoiding the same picks as always. One athlete I know well had a journey at a university where I studied. He's an experienced player and a receiver, but also played as a running back this year. To clarify, the second set of yards mentioned refers to rushing yards. He made 60 receptions for 611 yards and had 51 carries for 322 yards, averaging 6 yards per carry. They developed a wildcat package for him, and as a fan of his team, I watched every play throughout each season. This strategy increased his performance. The team was showing mediocre results before this tactic was implemented, finishing with a positive record. This brought a new dynamic to the offense since he's a physically imposing player, and traditional running backs weren't standing out. The offensive line wasn't particularly efficient at blocking for the run, but he found spaces, broke tackles, and created explosive plays. He presents as an intriguing prospect, and a quick analysis shows he has a robust frame, measuring 2 meters and 1 centimeter and weighing 225 pounds. As a receiver, he's very effective in contested catches and can be used in plays where he needs to jump in specific situations in the red zone, though his route execution isn't ideal. If a team decides to pick him and expects him to become a second receiver capable of running a complete route tree, this strategy will likely not succeed. A more advantageous approach would be to leverage his versatility, using him as a big receiver in the slot, positioning him on the outside, passing him the ball in open spaces, and using plays where he needs to jump to catch the ball. Having him in a wildcat formation could be quite effective. An approach that relies on running the entire route tree without a clear plan may not yield satisfactory results. However, if there's a defined vision for the player and his versatility is applied appropriately, positioning him occasionally as a slot receiver, placing him in outside roles, passing the ball to him quickly to create space, and directing him in jump situations to receive the ball can bring benefits. Additionally, integrating a wildcat formation that allows him to receive the ball from time to time and considering him as a kick returner can showcase his potential. I believe he has everything it takes to stand out in that role in the league. The comparisons often made to a well-known player have their value, because I see that he has slightly superior explosiveness and more refined receiving skills than the athlete's early career, who was seen as a failure before finding his spot as a running back. I'm convinced he can be more effective as a receiver than the cited player. He's an exceptional talent, and if he's chosen solely as a traditional receiver, the results may not be favorable. However, if he's guided by a creative offensive mind, this can lead to great achievements. I can easily picture a coach appreciating his skills or another coach imagining him as an improved version of a notable player. Therefore, if a team gets an extra third-round pick, I believe the ideal window for selecting him is between 60 and 100, where he should be chosen. He's an exciting athlete who could get 6 to 8 touches per game and has the potential to make explosive plays if used properly. The space will continue to bring the latest updates, rumors, and draft simulations as we approach the big event, as well as trade speculations and everything surrounding this football team. Quickly changing focus to third-day picks, a name that deserves attention is that of a linebacker who could appear in different draft simulations. They might opt for a player at this position in the second round, but it's essential to bring someone into this role. This athlete has an interesting profile and some coverage skills, despite having dealt with injuries throughout his college career, so we'll be curious to see where he's picked. Another intriguing prospect is a player who might be selected earlier than expected, having played at a prestigious university and being quite athletic as a guard. There are opinions indicating that he even plays as a center. If a team is looking for an interior offensive lineman who's athletic and still developing, he could be a solid pick at the end of the third day to compete for a roster spot, as offensive line depth continues to be crucial. Although a player may not be the most dynamic, he has considerable experience gained from his former team, showing good production. Even though he didn't play under a renowned coach last year, he received significant training, which I consider relevant. Therefore, selecting such a player at the end of the third day to join the safety group certainly wouldn't be a bad option. To recap the selections, on the first and second days, there was a trade to secure an important player with the 5th pick, followed by another trade to select another player. The first was selected at 55 and the second at 72, and I'm starting to really get excited about this young guy. It could also be an interesting pick at 86. On the third day, we discussed a Penn State linebacker in the 5th round, along with his 2 7th-round picks, which include a player from a prominent university and a safety with valuable experience. Now, how do you evaluate this draft simulation? I'm curious to hear your opinions, so feel free to leave your rating. With each new simulation we present, we're getting closer to the real event, and I'm looking forward to it. Stay tuned for content and updates that will be coming to your screen as we approach the draft. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Chicago Bears. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The NFL world was buzzing this week with rumors that the Chicago Bears are making a bold play to acquire one of the most electrifying wide receivers in the league, Justin Jefferson. Known for his record-breaking performances and his ability to take over games, Jefferson is undeniably one of the most coveted players in football. With the Bears eyeing a potential blockbuster trade or contract negotiation, the landscape of the NFC North could be dramatically altered by this high-stakes move. Jefferson, the Minnesota Vikings star wide receiver, has solidified himself as one of the premier talents in the NFL since entering the league in 2020. In just 5 seasons, he has accumulated more receiving yards than any player in NFL history at that point in their career, including an awe-inspiring 1,809 yards and 128 receptions in 2022. These staggering numbers earned him the Offensive Player of the Year award and established him as a cornerstone of the Vikings offense. Despite his already legendary status, the Bears are targeting Jefferson in a move that could shake up the NFC hierarchy. The Bears' motivation is clear. After years of rebuilding and reshuffling their roster, Chicago wants to bring in a player who can immediately impact their offense. With a new quarterback under center, adding a dynamic playmaker like Jefferson could provide the perfect spark to elevate the team's offensive game. Jefferson's speed, route-running precision, and ball skills could make him an ideal fit for Chicago's offensive scheme, offering their quarterback a reliable deep threat and a safety net in crucial moments. However, securing Jefferson will not be an easy feat with his recent 4-year, $140 million contract extension that guarantees $110 million. Jefferson remains firmly under contract with the Vikings until 2028. The Bears would need to convince the Vikings to part ways with their star receiver or navigate the complex process of trade talks, which would require giving up significant assets. The high price tag is justified, considering Jefferson's continued dominance on the field, including his incredible feats in the 2024 season, where he surpassed 1,500 receiving yards and led the NFL in touchdowns. Whether the Bears' pursuit of Jefferson will materialize remains to be seen, but one thing is clear. The NFL offseason just got a whole lot more interesting. If Chicago can pull off this daring move, they could quickly shift from rebuilding to championship contender, with a player who has proven time and again that he can change the course of a game with a single play. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.